Alright, we're live. Hello everyone and welcome to the Age of Sigmar narrative show. We've been away a while. Some personal life things and stuff like that, but we're back and coming at you with all that amazing narrative. So let's get into it. First of all,
Yeah,
how are you, mate?
not too bad. That is now my Twitter name for those of you looking. It is the real Go Trick. So um, that that pose at City GT was not actually intended to be that way, but then the photo came out, and well, if the shoe fits, let's just go with it.
He's broad. He's got a big red beard. You fit it.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I might show up to the next event with a stick on Mohawk or something.
yeah. Now you just need to beat absolutely everyone's pants off like Go Trek does. That's probably the hard
Yeah,
part.
yeah. Don't know don't know about that, but yeah, especially given I'm bringing the horde. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, well, already. But most recently, the Ossiarch Bone Reapers and
Yeah,
Ogre Tribes coming out next weekend.
yeah. Pretty keen for the ogres. Given I just rebased one of my old armies a while back. So.
Yeah, no, they're looking sweet.
Mm.
The Bone Reapers are interesting. I like the models, but I love that lore. The lore is what's hooked me on them.
Yeah, the background. I mean, the models for me, like I said the other day, I think I said last time. The some of the models just don't seem to do it for me. I don't know whether it's the paint job or what. But so, like the bigger ones seem pretty cool. The guys collecting the bones and stuff. But yeah, the little guys just look a little bit bland. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely like them more when I saw that, like the secondary color schemes come out and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, and that's
Um,
it. Like when we start to see some of those homebrew colours and stuff, we might see a bit different.
yeah. But so yeah, they're both coming out, and then obviously we got revealed last night that the Bone Reapers like full release is the week after this. They're getting
Yep.
everything in 1 week as well, like the whole lot, everything.
Yeah, I think they're trying to churn out full releases because they're still trying to get out some of those other battle tomes as well. You know, some of those leak things saying that we might be getting Slaves to Darkness and stuff sooner rather than later. So
Yeah, if you haven't got on, there's a lot of rumors going around that there's this like spreadsheet with like Slaves to Darkness. It is just rumor, but
yeah,
usually where there's smoke, there's fire with rumors nowadays. Rarely are we led
yeah. Well,
astray.
Slaves to Darkness really do need a kick because they're much like the Cities of Sigmar. There's some of those newer old models that need a bit of a boost, like the Chaos Warriors and stuff.
Yeah. Now, it'd be nice to see. Hopefully, that is not just rumor and something fact, but yeah, rumor at this time. Oh, I have a bit of an echo. I'm trying to. We'll hopefully sort that out. Oh yeah. But yeah. Oh, I can hear that coming through now. I think I might.
Don't think it's me.
I know what that is. Let's just remove that. That should be better now.
Yep. Well, I wasn't here in the first one, so
Is that better?
that seems clearer. Actually, yeah.
I think I realised what I did is I forgot to take off something. Thank you very much, Doom. Anyway, carrying on, other news that's come out, we're getting the what can we call it? The ghouls coming out for
Yeah, for Underworlds. Yeah.
so
Um, yeah. I mean, again, I don't know. The paint job that they said was pretty bland as well. Like, I'm not sure whether GW were trying to make some of those things accessible. Do you know what I mean? Like paint wise. So, like, the schemes aren't as complex as some of the previous ones. So it's sort of suggesting that you can do this, you can give it a shot. Maybe, not sure.
yeah, no, definitely. I think that's really it for news like coming out this week, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
There's a lot, but not a lot to talk about, if that makes sense.
Well, I think that the fact that we've got two, one brand new and one revisited army in a week is pretty cool. Of course, trying to get hold of that box set is something else, but
Yeah, I had to order from across the other side of the world to get mine.
Oh, it's incredible how quickly it sold. Just disappeared. Like
Everywhere too.
Yeah, like I would normally go through, Emerald or something like that, and that was just gone. Like one of them, I think it was Irresistible Force, was saying GW only allocated them like bugger all, and even in Australia there wasn't a lot. So even some GW managers missed out, which is pretty weird.
Yeah, but it is what it is. Most of that stuff will hopefully be available pretty quick
Yeah.
anyway. Most of it already is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Oh, the ogre stuff. Yeah. It's the Bone Reapers thing, and I think there'll be a lot of ogre stuff on eBay and stuff shortly.
I think you'll be able to get that tyrant pretty easy.
Yeah.
So, onto a bit of hobby time, and we're going to start something new in the coming episodes because you're going to CanCon this year. Unfortunately, I can't make it, but what have you been working on?
I am putting together Tamarkan's Horde. I'm not normally my army construction consists of put a unit together and paint it, and so on. But this time, because it's a brand new thing and I've no idea how they run, I've just decided to put the whole lot together first, and then I'll be able to play some games as it gets painted. So over the last couple of weeks, I've put together a whole lot of Plague Ogres because they're battle line. This chap, which is the creature caster Great Unclean one, who's really cool. Yesterday I put together the Toad Dragon with Tamarkan himself. And today I just washed my Chaos War Mammoth.
I think you have just blew Doom's mind.
You know you want some.
I think he's probably disappointed he grudged Liam now.
Well, I mean, look, it'll look cool on the tabletop. Having just obviously I've read through the rules. I'm more looking for the models that are cool as always. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to get Ruffle stomped.
Going for that wooden spoon.
But yeah, but lots of big bodies, but they're not as resilient as you'd think.
Yeah. But yeah, that's going to be cool. Myself, hobby-wise, I'm getting just a few models done. I've been working on a Hurricanum.
Yep.
Nothing quite as fantastic. Putting together a Hallowheart list because narrative. And yeah, so working on the cities.
Yeah.
Which is what we're going to talk about today. But
Yep.
before we get into that sort of topic, we're going to chat a little bit about stuff in the community. So you have anything you want to mention?
I mean, the hashtag Road to CanCon. Lots of people sharing their stuff on their CanCon journey. It's awesome. If you get onto Twitter, look up the hashtag. Everyone getting prepped, getting ready. Very cool. Yeah, and if you're interested in some of the painting journeys, Hour a Night Miniature Hobby Challenge, there's lots of stuff going up on there lately as well.
Awesome. Myself, from what I know just at the moment, I think it's just me and Coach. We're both doing Movember.
Yeah.
We did it last year. I think we ended up raising almost $2,000 between some members of the AOS community in Australia, which was pretty cool. And we're giving it a crack again this year. I'll be doing painting streams on a nightly basis all through November with the hashtag Painting Moes for Bros.
Yep.
So I'll be painting models with mustaches for an entire month.
I want to see the orcs with the mustache.
I'm trying to figure out what models in my army have mustaches. I've got some ogres, I've got Caradrons that need painting, I've got plenty of free guild.
A lot of the ogres have got that sort of Mongol thin one. You can give that a go.
Yeah, all the Beastclaw sculpts do. So
yeah.
Even Tree Lords. I mean, they got beards.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'll count beards. Beards can count as well. But yeah, definitely start with the Caradrons. Just doing a quick little test model. Going to be doing Barak Mornar as the scheme for them.
Is it the Rising Sun one?
It's the bluey one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like blue, so
yeah.
But yeah, so we'll be doing Movember. I'm sure you'll see us share the Movember page around on Twitter and stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, probably just the last little shout out. Won't worry about it. We'll get straight into the subject. Won't worry about shouting it out here. So, Free Cities. I think we chatted about them on the last episode before we went away. Was the Free City chat when we were sort of like picking apart what we thought might have Cities of Sigmar from all those disparate factions.
Well, the most obvious thing is for all those people that were trying to do their narrative Free City and were running it as mixed order. Most of it now you can run as an army without having to spend those either ally points or just without any having access to spells or artifacts and things like that, which is a big plus. In terms of individual stuff, Darkling Covens, the Free Peoples, Serpentis, Dispossessed, Phoenix Temple, some of the other high elf stuff, not much. Now, if you want to have that diversity, you can just do it, which I think is great. Rules-wise as well, they're a solid list now. A lot of people, especially if the Free Cities Facebook groups only to go, but we've had people coming out of the woodwork. People with old Warhammer armies going, woohoo, I'm in. So.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Obviously, I'm the admin. Andrew's one of the moderators of the group. We've got other good moderators in there, like Ricky Smith, who is, you might have seen his Army of Midnight stuff on Warhammer Community. It's fantastic. That stuff.
It's a gold.
That's next level hobby.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really great seeing like everyone come out. I think the group's hit 2.5k the other week.
It's just huge.
Now, unfortunately, there were sacrifices that had to be made, and we all predicted this.
Yeah.
There were probably more than we were expecting. We won't go into that. That's a conversation that's happened many a time already.
Yeah. But one of the people converting all sorts of things to be part of their so like the old Thorgrim on throne being counted as a hurricane with a bit of work and stuff like all that sort of stuff is just really cool, and the modelling that's come out of it's fantastic.
Yeah. What did Vince from Warhammer Weekly post the other day? Was his steam tank with a thermal rider cloak?
Yeah.
Was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. It's I think won't touch any more. Last thing to say, I guess, on all the discontinued stuff was it was just most of it, for the most part, was just an extra unit that would have had the same rules as something already in the book.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. Like, people lamenting the loss of one thing or another, but like, you can still count them as something else. There's so much stuff you can do with it.
Anyway, past that, that's happened. We're over that. So, narratively, like, the options for having a free city are fantastic. What you can do with, like, this sort of defiant Avengers, like mortal men against the monsters and the trepidations of the realms.
Yeah, I think from a narrative, that's such a great book. There's so much you can do with it.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, we're going to start with, well, where do we start when we're narratively building up a free city? And I think probably there's a few parts that are probably important to it. Oh, for some reason, your screen is jumping all over the place on my thing. All right.
Okay.
Anyway, so realms are obviously important.
Yep.
We've done a whole show talking about the realms and how important they are to the narrative of your army.
Yep.
Now, is there a way you choose sort of realm? Like, I guess, what are you looking for when you're picking a realm for an army? Obviously, in the book, we're restricted to 2, but narratively building, who cares? You're going to pick one.
Yeah, that's right. Like my first city is Chamon. I think it's probably, in terms of the book now, it'll probably have to be Akshi, but background wise, it's Chamon. It comes down a little bit to the narrative that you have in your head when you start. Like, where would this thing that I'm putting together in my head, where would be the most logical place for it to be? If you've got lots of deserts and wastelands and things, then you're obviously going to gravitate towards the realm that has more of them, that sort of thing. But it also comes down, I think, there's that rule of cool. Like, which realm do you think has the coolest background imagery, ideas, stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe not necessarily the realm. We might start with like the gimmick, I guess
Yep.
you would call it. Every sort of city has something about it that makes it cool. Whether it's Hammerhall being in 2 realms, Excelsis having, literal visions as traded currency, or not even the gimmick.
Black market.
Yeah, or even Greywater Fastness, which is the gimmick is it's entirely opposed to the realm it's in.
Yeah. The black market in Nambleguard.
Yeah. So, starting with like your gimmick, you got to figure out what makes your city tick. Now, throughout this, we'll probably use my own city of Halliheart and your city of Molten Heart. Not Halliheart. Forge. Wrong one. And your city of Molten Heart, and we'll sort of use them as guiders as to how we've done it, and you can sort of build along the steps of the way. So for Molten Heart, what was the gimmick that you had at the start, like the thing that made it what it is?
Well, I mean, I'm a bit of a Tolkien tragic. I did a lot of stuff on Tolkien when I was at uni a long time ago, literature-wise. So that idea of a lost civilization or an empire lost was foremost in my mind when I was putting together the first sort of steps for Molten Heart. And I knew I didn't want to use humans. I just, from a background and a modelling perspective, I'm not a fan of the Germanic type aspect that was the old empire. So I didn't want to have that stuff in there. I mean, I know I could have used it, converted to something else, but model range wise, they just didn't do it for me. So what it is, I started thinking about that sort of iconic who's lost the most. That brought me to Dispossessed. So I thought, well, maybe we've got a Thor and Oakenshield-esque type pursuit or a reclamation of a lost home or hold or something, and that was the very first steps. It evolved a long way from that, and it's not really like that now, but that's where I started. I started with that sort of idea.
Yeah, and I guess you'll see throughout this process, if we talk about our 2 cities, they'll be quite different to how we both envisioned them at the start, but you need that spark, that thing to start you going. For me, it was a God Beast. I love the idea of God Beasts in the realms, and I wanted to have a God Beast central in my city. And so it started with God Beast. I'm like, well, what makes and then that was the initial idea. And the gimmick of the God Beast was it was a rain God Beast, and so this God Beast that lived high atop a mountain made it always rain in the city, and because it's God Beast rain, it made these magical pools that made the forgers craft hallowed weapons.
Cool.
Hence the name Haloforge. And so
Yeah.
everyone has like magic weapons in this city, are just something you find on the corner store.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, once I'd got that idea of sort of dispossessed reclamation stuff, I then went to, well, what else do I want to put in there, sort of model wise, that I can then add to the story, and I've always liked the Dark Elf models. I've liked Dark Eldar models in 40k, and I've never actually done a Dark Elf army or Dark Eldar army or anything like that. The closest I came was a Dark Elf Blood Bowl team. And I just thought, well, here's a perfect opportunity. So then I thought, well, okay, Darkling Covens and Order Serpentis need to be in there somewhere. And that led me to the second part of the city.
Yeah, for me it was, at the point of creating my free city, it was combining two separate sort of big armies that I had and all these little factions I had into one. So for me it was I had my Stormcast and my Wanderers, and it was putting them together, and then I had little bits of Free Guild and little bits of High Elves and Dark Elves and little bits in there, but the two dominant factions were Wanderers and Stormcast.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea of the limited background that we had for the Darklings and stuff too also appealed, because it gave me a bit more freedom in terms of my own storytelling.
Yeah. And like some of them, they gave you enough. Like the Wanderers narrative is still pretty cool and still pretty much the same sort of thing nowadays. Should have the Lorehammer video going up for Wanderers, I think tomorrow or in a couple of days. But their whole thing is like trying to redeem themselves to Alarielle, and so you've got this massive redemption sort of angle in the city.
Which is also very, very cool.
Yeah. But then I sort of thought about it. It's like, well, they're not worshipping Alarielle because they won't be worshipping her because that's not who they like. They need a god that actually likes them. And so that brought me to my next part, which was like gods and all that sort of stuff in the city. So obviously it's a city of Sigmar, so Sigmar is a deity in the city that they worship. And then I put in Kurnoth as well. So I'm like, well, here's someone who, like Kurnoth, he's the consort, he's trying to woo Alarielle. Or was, before he died. Interesting lore snippet. Nurgle kills him.
Yeah. Cool.
And then, obviously, I've got the God Beast still, so you've got like these three sort of factions within the city.
Yeah. So I was also thinking, about religious aspects and worship and stuff. And again, coming back to the old school Dark Elves, I thought, well, in terms of worship, if the Darklings have got there first, maybe they're a small enclave of Daughters of Cain with them, and they looked after the spiritual needs of the growing community. So, and again, it was like, well, how does that work then with the dispossessed? If the main sort of focus of the religion in the city is going to be Cainite, what does that mean for the Duarden? And then I thought, well, if we're an early city from the reopening of Azir, because the stubborn dispossessed went, screw you, we're out, then they've been there for a long while, so there would have been an evolution. And after the reclamation, after the second Skaven invasion, when the Darklings and the dispossessed were forced to fight together, a decree was made, and the Caradhran, who'd helped out, used the Caradhran Code as an example, and they came up with this idea that, well, aim of within the city. And given that Grimnir has been shattered and the followers of Grimnir are kind of trying to bring his bits back together, and the followers of Cain are kind of trying to bring his bits back together, that perhaps they're not that different after all. And ultimately what happens is within the city over the course of the next several hundred years, the two faiths merge into what became the cult of the dismembered god. So within the city, there are now daughters of the dismembered god who are actually Duarden. There's female Duarden fighting alongside the elves and things like that, which I've actually converted some of the models for. So I've got some female dwarves in my witch elves and stuff like that. Because I'm a tragic that way.
No, nice. And it's this sort of stuff that starts, like, you'll snowball this sort of stuff over time.
Yeah.
And like, so you were mentioning then the second Skaven War, enemies become a big part.
Yeah.
They define the characters and the relationships within your city, because factions that might not have once been close, or you can't figure out a reason why they're close, there's nothing bringing people together like a good war.
Yep.
Or a fight for survival.
The enemy of my enemy and stuff, yeah. But, because I came up with the idea of if during the Age of Myth there was some arcane mystery that the Skaven wanted in the mountain, that would result in an invasion. And during that time, the Vermin Lord, who was in charge, when he worked out he wasn't going to be able to take the city, he redirected the flow of one of the molten rivers of metal. Did the whole dwarven hold with molten metal, which caused the initial fleeing of the mountain. And when the waters, if you like, subsided, the upper reaches of what would become Molten Heart are now clad in gleaming metal. So the whole city is floors, walls, etc., made of metal. And then when they came back, when the Duarden came back and found that during the Age of Chaos a Darkling Coven had taken up residence, they start saying, you can't have this, it's our hold. The Darklings go, we've been here for hundreds of years now, so bugger off. Then the Skaven attack again, and they're forced to help each other out.
Nice. Yeah, and that's, like, personally I haven't really come up with enemies for my city yet. So that's not really something I've grown on in my own, but it definitely helps. And like disasters and triumphs and all that sort of stuff help.
Yep.
I guess my biggest war is actually factions within themselves. So Hallowforge is built within this mountain, and there's a pass through the mountain. And on the other side of that pass is Hallowforge Seconders, which is a small little town on the other side of the mountain. Now that's a port, and it's used by a lot more of the more non-friendly factions. In fact, my Scourge Privateers take up residence there. Yeah. They sort of use this way as like illicit dealings and all that. But they've been assaulted by whether fleets of Skaven or whatever, and multiple times they have to call for aid, and they have the pass, and they have all this. They end up defending the pass and stopping the city get attacked on from this mountain pass that gets right behind Hallowforge.
Cool. Yep. See, I actually have the name of the Vermin Lord who led the first invasion, and because he's a demon, he's immortal, and he was in charge of the second invasion. So he's always there in the background waiting to maybe come back, try again.
Nice. I guess we're moving on to that sort of thing. Population is most certainly a interesting topic to talk about, and like the size and notability of your city. These all sort of, I guess, follow into why would people attack your city? What makes your city important?
Well, that's where, again, when I was coming up with that sort of why would someone be there, etc. Similar to what you did with your God Beast, I was thinking, well, there's got to be some sort of arcane mystery. So then I decided upon the Doors of Grungni, which at the very, very bottom layers of Molten Heart. And since the Skaven flooded the lower levels, it now sits in the middle of a molten lake at the bottom of the mountain, inside the mountain, is a gleaming golden door covered in Duardan runes that nobody has been able to open. And all sorts of, during the chaos and sorcerers wanted a portal to Tzeentch's realm or something like that, but it still remains steadfastly closed. So lots of people, it emanates magic and whispers things to the Duardan rune lords that go down there. So.
No, nice. So, yeah, obviously, like that thing that makes your city something to be attacked and important, and obviously you mentioned mine is most certainly a god beast. People like god beasts. They're sort of powerful.
And there's all sorts of things they can use too. Bits of a god beast are valuable.
Yes. And so I've actually got Phoenix Temple in the city that no one quite knows what Aquitaine looks like. It's this thing high above the clouds. You see bits of it dip in and out of the clouds high above Everpeak, which is the mountain in which the city sits, and you never quite know. And so by doing that, like, I create this cool little mystery for the city that no one actually really knows. But there's Phoenix Temple that worship him. And that, of course, puts the Phoenix Temple in the army. And they worship this ever-doused flame, so this continuously smouldering flame. Because obviously in Hallowforge, it is always raining. Never stops. And the city's on a slant, and it all goes off into the ocean. So it's not exactly the nicest place to live. If you don't like rain, you don't sort of go live in Hallowforge.
Yeah, but see, just in terms of, like, as we was talking about the narrative, like that paints some magnificent pictures that you can then use for your city. You know, like you think about how that would look, and then it gives you fuel to then write your background and your stories and stuff like that.
Yeah, most certainly. And so I've got another faction, and that was just like, oh, I wondered, because I don't quite know how I was going to build Aquitaine, and I'm like, well, what happens if no one knows what he looks like? And then I can have Phoenix Temple worship him.
Yes, so maybe he's a phoenix-like god beast. Ooh.
Yeah, or yeah, you just don't know. So we'll get a little bit into more models now. You were talking about your Duardan, your female Duardan and thing, modeling and like painting, converting, and all that sort of stuff. I guess we'll start with something simple. How did you come up with the colour scheme for your free city?
Well, I mean, that probably took, I think, longer than some of the other bits. Because Shimon, being the realm of metal, I mean, obviously I wanted to have a whole lot of different metallic colours, but I also wanted to make it so that I could actually do it relatively quickly. So non-metallic metal was never going to be an option, simply because with any free city, the amount of painting is quite substantial, and it would just take far too long. So the first thing I did was I started collecting from any paint manufacturer I could, whatever metallics that they had, and started playing around with various combos of them. Once I decided on sort of a combo of metals, it then came down to, well, what everyone that's wearing metals has got robes, etc. underneath. So then it came down to what can stand out and what still would work in terms of darkling culture that wouldn't then look out of place on Duardan, etc. So I went with that sort of very quite dark purpley blue as the base. So most of the robes and things are that colour. And then from there it was a case of, well, contrast, so little bits of bone in places just to bring out the other colours and things like that. And it took, I mean, I had 5 or 6 practice models before I was happy with it. And then once it was relatively stable, I then started looking at stuff like, because there's a large Order Serpentis, obviously, I don't want to do all of my cold ones, or Drakespawn and dragons and stuff, traditional colours. I want them to look like they've been spawned from a single progenitor. So then I looked at some actual lizard colours, what would work well across a wide range of reptilian beasties. Experimented with that, came up with that sort of pinky bluey red colour, which is actually the agama lizard, if you're interested. Practiced it and went with that, and that was the next stage.
Awesome. Mine was very different because obviously I mentioned how like my Free City was all about bringing two factions together that I already owned. I had my Stormcast, which were a nice blue, and I had my Wood Elves, which were painted in like the traditional Wood Elf green scheme, the summer green scheme that you saw in 8th Ed Fantasy.
Yeah.
My Stormcaster painted it like Ultramarines. Like literally ripping the Ultramarine scheme from GW. And so I literally combined that on other models, and blue and green, it's bound to work.
Yeah.
And then I just added bits of gold and white as the spot colour through the army.
Yeah. Well, because obviously I wanted to have a storm host attached to the city, I wanted them to be blend, but also to be different enough to still look like a storm host. So I went with the Native American theme, did a sort of burnt red armour, and then added feathers and things to all of the models so that they're based on the Ardea Plains folk outside of the city, and that's why they ended up having their storm host back in the city. So I wanted, again, the colours to be Shaman, but different enough that they were part of the city but apart from it. So that's why they ended up being those colours.
Yeah. I very much wanted my storm host to be very much a part of the city. These are the guys who found it, and like in the first strike and all that, they launched down and they defended this area. They're very much like central to this city.
Yeah, whereas mine, because it's quite main, it's all Duarden and Elven, and especially the sort of those not necessarily very nice cultures. The Stormcaster there kind of live. Their storm host is their storm keep is outside the city as opposed to in it, because they'll work with them because they're order allies, but they don't really like them very much.
Yep, no, that's fair. And you're talking there a little bit about like modelling, converting up your storm host. Is there anything else you've done for like the Free City at all to try and tie it in?
Well, I commissioned someone to do a symbol for the Free City. Relatively cheap. I mean, when you're doing things like that, it only cost me, I think it was about $100 from sort of, and that was with multiple incarnations and things like that. I found someone on DeviantArt. There's lots of people on there that you can commission. Gave them the various bits and pieces that I needed and wanted in it. And it was tricky because obviously I wanted an Elven aesthetic, but also a Duarden one. And eventually came up with it. When I was happy with it, I paid to have transfers made. So then all of my banners, all of my shields and things like that now have the symbol of the Free City of Molten Heart on it, which obviously ties the army together as much as colour does.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the next step for me is having those city symbols.
Yeah,
something like that get done for my Free City.
Yeah, it just and it's a little thing, but it does tie things together when you've got the same symbol on, like a Longbeard shield and a Dark Shards banner. It goes a long way to tying them as one force.
Yeah, and most definitely like that unified scheme sort of does as well.
Yeah.
Now we've got down. So another sort of topic is you've mentioned that you only have like Duarden and elves, no humans.
Mm-hmm. No.
Have you ever potentially thought about using a human unit but converting it up out of Dark Elf or Dwarven bits?
Up until this point, not really, because the units were chosen with a background purpose. The exception to that being things like the Shadow Blades and stuff like that, who didn't really necessarily have a presence, but still kind of fit. So because I've used the Tenebral Shard and stuff in the past as well. But now with the Free Cities book out, there's a lot of things like, as I mentioned before, like I actually have the old Thorgrim model with his being carried around at his throne. I'm sure I can convert that into something. I was toying with using some giant bats or something like that, mounted with elves to be gyrocopters and stuff. So it's something that's on the radar. And yeah.
Back in 1 second, I have just a thing to show.
The Bang Crash.
Yep, should have grabbed this before. These bad boys. Now this spawned out of I already have these models and I don't want to buy more Pistoliers, but I have some old Glade Riders that are converted into Pistoliers.
Cool.
And I see a lot of people talking about that sort of stuff. They're like Elven purists or Dwarven purists or human purists.
Yeah.
Wanting to make like things out of the other ones.
Yeah, executioners and things like that.
Yeah. I would say there are ones you should be more careful of, and you need to be more specific with what you're doing. And there are certainly things you should not do, which is like have executioner models and use them as greatswords.
Yeah. Because they both all now exist as a separate scroll.
Yes, there are certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are certain things you need to avoid when doing this. It should always be obvious by looking at what you're doing as to what it is.
Yeah.
Like what's it? Like, I'll bring up Vince again. That flying steam tank he's made. You look at it and you're like, that looks like a steam tank. It looks like a tank. Yeah. It's got a human dude in it. It's just flying.
Yeah.
Well, it's a Pistolier. It's an elf on a horse with pistols. The only difference is it's elf, not human.
And I think that's one of the things that, as we're going forward with Sigmar 2, is becoming quite clear as a departure from the old world. Elves, Duarden, and humans can fulfill different roles that they wouldn't traditionally have done in the old world, be it with the Free Cities or with Chaos, like with the Warcry, we're starting to see Dwarf and Elf Chaos cultists. Things like that. So it's eminently doable. It's not something that you're sort of gonna get smashed for. It's in the fluff. It works.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like the best thing about the Mortal Realms is they're so vast that you cannot be told no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, especially now with this Free Cities, we're starting to see this community just grow exponentially almost, because people are working out, hey, I can do pretty much whatever I like, and find a way to make it canon. It's awesome.
Yeah. I think there's quite a bit of potential in like converting up your models for your Free Cities.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you want to add to this sort of discussion about building up?
I think part of it too, don't be afraid to, put hand to keyboard or pen to paper or whatever and stuff like that. There's been some great fluff come out of this, and I think it was in the US. One of the guys actually printed his.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The book.
Yeah, he printed his background stuff as an actual book and gave it to his opponents. Look, people love that shit. Even some of the competitive guys love it.
I got one at CanCon playing Luke Ingram from Bendigo. He had like this.
Yeah.
It was just like a page of narrative, and this was the story. This was his army. These were all the characters that were named.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, I've got that kit. I've still got it somewhere. It was cool. Just a cool little thing.
Yeah. just put pen to paper. Jot down some ideas. For the narrative gamers out there like us, we want to hear it. When you put your army down, okay, this is my insert generic thing here. What's his name? What's he doing? Why is he there?
I don't care if he's called Bob, by the way. It doesn't
That's
bother me.
right.
I'd rather a silly name than no name.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it helps your own narrative when you find out, because then if you want to do that writing, you can go home and talk about how, your Dreadlord took down that Free Guild guy because he was an upstart, and deserved it, sort of thing.
Well, speaking of like that sort of stuff, and like, I guess that's like another good point. Letting your games forge your narrative, even competitive. I allowed games to entirely forge the narrative of my Scourge Privateers. To the point where the main character is called Harken Stormbreaker, because the first game I played was against Stormcast and they smashed them.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is he stole something from a storm vault and he broke the storm.
Yep. And I mean, even and adding in the similar vein, adding units or models to the army, especially characters, to change things up because of the necessity of an event, allows you to play with that story as well.
Yeah.
Like I added the female Dreadlord on the big Heresy Dragon for Sydney GT because I needed, with the points, another Dreadlord. And I'd been toying with the idea of having the link between the Serpentis and the Darklings in the city, and I'd already hinted at it. So then I thought, well, what if the Dreadlord had a relationship with the sister of the Darkling sorceress? So that she's the sister of the Darkling sorceress that rules over the Darkling areas of Moltenheart. And that allowed me to go to town on her. So,
awesome. Yeah, but I think we've pretty much covered like just build some ideas on like building your narrative and talking about it, really. I think there's too much more we can talk about. It's not going to be the longest of shows to be the first one back, but we'll get more into this.
And look, drop me a line if anyone wants to chat about it on Twitter or something like that. I'm happy to talk narrative.
Yep, always same here. Or drop anyone a line that has the tag Neo at the end of their name. They'll greatly appreciate it.
Yep.
So just into a few last things to chat about. I guess these are things that are happening on the channel now. If you haven't noticed, there's Lorehammer happening every day. It's just short, sweet lore. As I put the tag up, I read lore so you don't have to. But if there's anything you're ever wondering about the lore. Apparently, Doom says, talk about hot. Apparently, the more tribes will destroy all the free cities. You can bring it on. I should have some more Lorehammer videos coming out for more tribes. I've got a bunch of the lore.
Well, given that the army I'm bringing to CanCon is all the more tribes that have been corrupted by Father Nurgle, I don't know whether that's so true, dude.
They're ogres. He doesn't care what sort of ogres. They're ogres.
They are ogres. They're stinky ogres, but they're ogres.
Don't know the difference between that and a normal ogre.
Well, these ones, the guts are falling out all over the place on this one.
He seems impressed. But yeah, so the Lorehammer videos are coming out. Obviously, I mentioned that I'll be doing all the painting Moes for Bros stuff during November. The narrative show continue. You've seen the Cities of Sigmar podcast that talks a lot more competitively about what I've been doing with Cities of Sigmar. That doesn't really focus on the narrative as much. However, there's big plans for the channel on doing like narrative battle reports and like actual living campaigns. So I've been working on that. That's taking a bit of time to organise though, but that'll be something.
Yep.
Anyway, I think that's all we have really for tonight. We'll be back next fortnight, and we'll, depending which is cooler, Ogres or I might put up a poll: Ossiarch Bone Reapers or Ogre More Tribes, and whichever one wins the poll, we'll talk about next fortnight and all the narrative sort of stuff.
I wonder where Doom's going to vote.
Yeah. Definitely Bone Reapers.
Of course, yeah.
I'll pit him and Mr. Mephisto against each other to like rouse up troops.
Yeah.
But last thing as well, if you are watching this back and you have any narrative that you've created on your own and you want to send it in, we'll give it a chat about and we'll talk about. We might even bring you on to have a chat about your own narrative.
Yeah.
And so open for anyone who has narrative on their army, wants to come chat, or even just about the generic narrative of their army, come on and chat with us. We will be making this into a podcast as well, so I'll be trying to turn this into a podcast without video as well.
Yep.
So
Cool.
Anyway, thank you all for joining us tonight. We will catch you all real soon. Yeah. Thank you all. Ciao.
Yeah.